Growing up with shows like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Lego Ninjago, I wasn't exposed to blunt understandings of how the world works. All the shows I watched were obviously fictitious, but never really explored dark themes. Sure, there would be deaths here and there, Lego Ninjago deaths, for example, but nothing too serious. However, that all changed when the channel was flicked to Clone Wars. Immediately, the first episode catches your eye. A group of absolutely sick-looking clones are stranded with their tiny but powerful Jedi master. We get to see how the clones interact with the Jedi and their mystical powers. The interplay between soldiers and the severity of the question of will they be able to make it off this rock alive is put on grandiose display. Thankfully, they do. Through clever use of power and discretion, the clones live to count the day. But not before we, the audience, discover interesting play-by-play between the planet's native species and the Separatists. All this, mind you, in the very first episode of a TV show rated PG that any kid could watch before school. As you might expect, I was immediately hooked on the idea of clones being awesome, and I remember becoming obsessed with my favorite clones from both the show and from the prequel movies. I would play with my action figures quite a lot of the time and be enthralled with the idea of destroying the clankers and winning my battles with my men. I would never see these famous prequel movies in the same light ever again. Then somehow, this PG rated series got even darker, a little scarier, and even more humane. When watching the movies, the sense of personality you get from the clones isn't really much. They are mindless killing machines bred for war and only war. Few have been shown to have real personalities. However, we get some real insight into the reality of clone life, especially early. Season 1, Episode 5, titled Rookies, shows Captain Rex and Commander Cody, the arguable main characters of clone representation, their defense of an isolated moon from separatist invasion with a group of demoralized rookie clones. Through the brief 20-minute episode, the director of the Clone Wars, Dave Filoni, is able to give the first true glimpse of clone nature, which little me and countless others were amazed to see. The distant listening outpost on the Rishi moon has a reputation for being boring and uneventful because of its distance from the front lines of battle. The new batch of rookies, however, are initially eager to prove themselves. So when a tragic, unthinkable variable happens, personalities are put right front and center for the audience to discover and humanize their heroes. A contingent of droid commandos are secretly deployed to take the outpost as part of a ploy by the rivals of the Grand Republic, the Separatist Party, to invade and take Kamino, the clones' homeworld where the grand armies of the Republic are created. The small group of clones left are forced to come together, and their humaneness is put on display, especially for characters like Fives and Echo, who both display different aspects of leadership not before seen from any clone. Fives is rash and much closer to being considered a warrior stereotype when compared to typical fantasy stereotypes. Echo, on the other hand, is incredibly analytical and apprehensive, much more of a mage when considering archetypes on a fantasy scale. These kinds of personalities have never been before seen, and the young me, even though lacking serious media literacy, was able to see that, recognize it, and become excited for the new perspective on these quite frankly awesome soldiers. But I digress. These rookies must work together with their commanding officers, Rex and Cody, to take back this outpost from the droids. In completing their mission, they discover new things about each other, forge new bonds that little me and other 10-year-olds have found awesome throughout all time. This ragtag group shows loyalty, highlights their individuality, and illustrates the courage that these clones truly have, showing how they aren't mindless clones bred for war. The final act of this beautiful display of humaneness unfortunately ends with Heavy sacrificing himself to save the many, successfully causing the base to be destroyed and the droid commandos to not be able to establish a base for the Separatist army. Little me and children alike shed a tear that day. Heavy's final act isn't a strategic one, but one that shows his love for his brothers and proves his worth. With his final breath, he proves that each and every clone is different and can love. Though they are known for being awesome instruments of war, they really are embodiments of humanity's best traits: love, uniqueness, and empathy. Through the rest of Season 1 and 2, the clones are consistently shown to be capable of much more than just war machine-like actions. No episode makes this more clear than Season 2, Episode 10, The Deserter. Throughout the 3-year war known as the Clone Wars, General Grievous, the feared cyborg Jedi hunter, was the military strategist for the Separatist Alliance. General Obi-Wan Kenobi is tasked with hunting him down with his troop of clones, and in this episode, they've tracked him down to a crash landing on the planet Saleucami. However, Captain Rex is injured and forcibly isolated. While nursing his wounds, he meets a man who bears an almost uncanny resemblance to himself, and his name is Cut Lawquane. He discovers he is a clone deserter from the Grand Army of the Republic. And he also discovers that Cut hides away and lives a simple life as a farmer who started a family, a vast difference from the army life that Rex is used to. Because Cut lives such a different life, even though he is in fact a clone, Rex is forced to come to the realization how little choice he has in his life, and how maybe the life of a soldier isn't all it's made out to be. Cut's life is honest and fulfilling. He loves his family, and this reveals a deep compassion for family in all clones, just not usually revealed because of the required harshness of war. Rex is visibly shaken when he lives with Cut while his wounds heal. The stark difference of the life of the deserter to the army life Rex is used to is shocking. Through their multiple conversation, Rex comes to terms with Cut's decisions even though he doesn't agree with it, which shows immense growth in his personality in the short time he spent on the farm. He is brought in thinking he'll report Cut, but ends his time on the farm with the thought that Cut's free will and compassion is important to life even though war is all Rex knows. When the Separatist comes to attack the farm, Rex, even though he's expressed his differences, fights alongside Cut to protect the family that Cut earned and created, and it demonstrates the loyalty of brothers that the clones can have. They are truly more than just common clones with no personality, underscoring the poignant final moments together with the aspects of bravery, loyalty, and depth of character that clones are able to show. The Deserter stands as the first honest example of a clone living a different life that is shown to the audience, and it is a poignant exploration of the clone's humanity, reminding us that beneath the helmets, they are people capable of love, growth, and introspection. It raises profound questions about the nature of identity and the cost of war, showing that even in a galaxy consumed by conflict, there is room for peace and individuality. In Season 3 of the series, Dave Filoni goes into much more depth of the early lives of the clones, showing how they grow up and are essentially treated as test subjects. With the starting 2 episodes of the season covering this arc of clones, Episode 1, Clone Cadets, and Episode 2, Arc Troopers, Episode 1 illustrates the physical and mental trauma that clones are forced to go through in their expedited growing process. The Domino Squad is struggling to pass their tests and must prove themselves, because unlike other clone squads, Domino is plagued by dysfunction, mistrust, and conflict, with each member suffering different issues. Fives, Echo, Heavy, Cut Up, and Droid Bait each have distinct personalities. Fives is outspoken and is an idealist, clashing with Echo's personality of being rule-abiding and cautious. Cut Up is witty and constantly cracking jokes, not taking things seriously, while Heavy is brash and determined to prove himself. Droid Bait is also earnest to prove himself, but is often underestimated by others. These massively differing personality types often led to clashes and illustrates the problems that being identified as a clone can be. As the squad moves into their final test, they face the threat of being relegated to maintenance workers, which would mean they are failures with no real potential. However, their trainers aren't evil. They secretly want their pupils to succeed. This is illustrated by Clone 99, who is labeled a technical defect by the Kaminoan standards. Now, Clone 99, although suffering from both physical and mental abuse from trainers and clones alike, still went and helped out the Domino Squad so that they could achieve the goals that he himself could not. Through 99's help, the squad comes together and actually passes their final examination to the surprise of everyone but 99, once again illustrating the bonds of brotherhood and humanity of the clones. Unfortunately, this two-part episode ends in travesty as the Separatists launch an invasion on Kamino, and 99 goes down in glory trying to help out any way he can, forever holding a spot in the hearts of all who knew him. Now, throughout the time of the Clone Wars, the clones only showed reasons upon reasons to be known as individuals and not war machines. However, they also housed an insidious secret. The inhibitor chips, which all clones had implemented into them on command of Darth Sidious, the secret Sith leader responsible for the downfall of the Republic, were capable of enacting a multitude of different commands without the clone's own personal feelings being able to affect it. Order 66, the Day of Reckoning for the Jedi, also spelled doom for the clones. The new Emperor of the Imperium immediately used his newfound power to destroy Kamino and all of what they were good at. The operation of creating clones was no longer deemed economically viable. The Dark Lord did not have a positive view of the creations that arose from his master plan. This unfortunately led to the clones who were already being horribly affected by not only the war, but also the trauma of killing their Jedis, to being ostracized by the very same government that they were created to protect. Slowly being shut out, the clones were essentially eradicated for the cheaper variants of soldier, non-genetically altered living beings, usually taken from enslaved worlds or poorer sectors of the galaxy. The clones, as a demographic, were made to serve a purpose, but they went on to do so much more, creating unbreakable bonds with each other and Jedis. The plan concocted by the Dark Lord of the Sith was horrifying on many fronts, but the one not often mentioned, the one that fought valiantly every step of the long galactic war, the ones who suffered the most, are the clones.